So we're going to start with variables and expressions. Our language objectives for today are reading complex algebraic expressions and writing complex algebraic expressions. And then also writing algebraic expressions that represent real-world situations. We're going to start with talking about two major points of confusion or things that will mix you up. One of them is when you see the words less than. Most of you can tell the difference between when you're comparing something smaller than or less than versus subtraction. So we're going to talk about the subtraction part. If you have something less than, if I have 10 less than, that than is referring to whatever you had before, so it's bringing you backwards. So you have to remember when you see less than, it's talking about going backwards and doing the subtracting. So, for example, in this first one, it says 10 less than the product of 7 and a number. And it's also got the product of. Product means the answer of 7 times a number, and we'll just pick n. So I'm taking 10 away from an answer, which means I need to do this multiplication first. And then, since it says less than, this is my amount, and I have 10 less than that product. So it would be written 7n, take away 10. Okay, so now here we see the difference of 10 and the product of 7 and a number. So it's basically the same, however it says difference of to mean subtraction. That's the difference between this thing and that thing. So they're already in order, so you don't need to switch these. So this one would be 10, take away 7n. The next part, which we've already kind of hit on, is the things that involve parentheses and how they're kind of shown. And just like before, we're going to look for words that have meaning like answer. So in the first one, you should see difference of, which means the answer to the subtraction problem. And the other one, I see quotient of, so that's the answer to a division problem. Okay, so the problem is listed after that. So 8 and a number, we'll take the difference of 8 and a number, and there's your parentheses, C and 3. Okay, so you're looking for that difference of. Okay, so this says twice the difference of 8 and a number. So I'm taking 2 times a subtraction problem. So 2 times 8, take away a number. So it's difference of, so I go right ahead and put them in order. But I need to have that parentheses because order of operations states to multiply before you subtract. But they're asking us to subtract, find an answer, and then multiply. Next one, 10 more than the quotient of C and 3. Again, I'm taking 10 plus an answer. So I need to have parentheses around this, so I make sure and do this first, because I can't add 10 to nothing. I have to have some sort of answer. So it'll be 10 plus, and then we always write division with our fraction bar if we can help it. Root C divided by 3. Put in parentheses, that way you ensure it's done first. We're going to practice these a little bit on a worksheet. It's not going to have a number, so it's not going to have variables, it's just all numbers, but it does the same thing. So I'm going to do I think you can go ahead and do all of these. So I'm going to hand out the worksheet and then pause the video, and I will go over the answers. So pause the video, do the problems, and I will go over the answers. Okay, so to go over each one, I'm going to do this quickly. 3 times the difference between, so that's my parentheses. So it's 3 times 18 difference, so subtract 13. 5 less than the product of, so 8 and 3. So I have my less than, so I need to flip it around. So it's 8 times 3 in parentheses minus 5. 12 minus the product of 9 and 7. So I'm using minus, so the order is fine. So it's just 12 take away and then the product. 9 and 7. 9 times 7. The difference between, again I'm using difference, so order is it's in the how it's given. So difference between signals, parentheses, 16 and an answer. So there's another set of parentheses in here. So it'll be the difference between 16 and a product. So I need a parenthesis again. 7 and 2. Product means multiplying, so I'll put a multiplication sign in there. 10 more than the quotient of 36 divided by 9. So I see quotient of what? 36 divided by 9 right in there. So 10 more than a quotient, it's division, 36 over 9, using your fraction mark. Twice as much as the sum of 18 and 11. So sum of means answer of that. Twice means multiply. So 2 times 18 plus 11. 24 less than the product of 6 and 11. Again, I see less than, so I hit, that makes my brain go, okay, I need to reverse the order. So first I need to do the product of 6 and 7. So 6 times 7, take away 24. 37 more than the quotient of 24 divided by 8. So 37 more than is add, quotient of is division and parenthesis. So 37 quote plus, more than, so plus, quotient, so parenthesis, 24 divided by 8. Okay, and then now hopefully you're starting to, they're getting a little repetitive, so hopefully you're starting to pick it up. Also, there's a few of these where the parentheses are extraneous information, like for example number 4 here. I would, if I wrote it 8 times 3 minus 7, I would still do the correct order of operations just the way it's written. But I hope you use parentheses since we're practicing using them. But some of them, this would be correct. Another one, where do you see order of operations correct in just the order? I think 9, 6, multiplication and then subtraction. But we're practicing finding those parentheses, so use them all day. Now we have to do the kind of the opposite. I'm going to give you an expression here, and you need to write the words out. So we're going to do 4 examples, because this is kind of case by case. They're all different. So a verbal expression, remember, is just words. So right here, how do you read that properly? I see a multiplication and I see a power of 4. So 3 times a number to the 4th power. Oh, I ran out of room. Hopefully you have enough on your paper to do all on one line. And I don't have to worry too much about my order of operations. They're natural. We have to do a power before we can multiply. Okay, on the next one, I don't see any parentheses, so I don't have to worry about that difference of, sum of, whatever. So I can kind of just write it how I see it. It's going to be 5 times a number squared. Use your proper language, not to the power of 2, squared. And then you could say plus 16 or something like that. Plus 16. But you could also say 16 more than 5 times a number squared. You can get out your words chart or look behind you at the cabinet where all the words are that you can use. Right, now the next one I see, I've got parentheses, so I make sure I need to use some language. I need the answer to what? I need the answer to a subtraction problem that's involving a product. Okay? So thinking about your order of operations, first you need to do product, then you need to do, the whole thing is really a subtraction problem. So, here we go. 3 more than, and then difference of, that's the outside, you read them, you solve them inside out, but you write them outside in, so it's backwards. difference of the product for and a number, product of, for and a number, and 8. So you've got it all in there. You've got your 2 sets of parentheses, difference of, product of. Okay, last one. So you've got to be careful. You've got a fraction multiplication here, and you've got, this is a fraction, it's also a quotient. So don't forget your word quotient. So you could read this the quotient of 1 and 2, but we also have a nice name for that. That's half. So you can write half of A plus the quotient. And now you have to write the 6b divided by 7. So that's a product up there. So the quotient of the product, 6, product of, I keep forgetting my ofs. Product of 6 and a number and 7. And maybe sometimes you don't like having and in there twice, so I might say the product of 6, and even though it's kind of redundant to say product and times, it's also kind of weird to say and. So sometimes I like to say the product of 6 times a number and 7. That way I don't have so many ands. Those are kind of not as useful words. Okay, so you'll practice more of this in your homework. One real-world example. Remember, we're talking about algebraic expressions. Not necessarily. Sometimes you'll answer them, sometimes you won't. So Mr. Martinez orders 250 keychains printed with his team logo and 500 pencils with their web address. Write an algebraic expression that represents the cost of the order. So remember, whenever you're doing a word problem and you have variables, you need to make sure and define your variables. He's ordering 250 keychains and 500 pencils, but we need to talk about the cost, so we don't know any of those costs. So I need to know the keychain cost, or maybe cost of keychain, and I need to know the cost of a pencil. Okay, so pick some variables for that, maybe K equals that and P equals cost of pencils, and then you can put it together. We have 250 keychains and 500 pencils, so you can go ahead and it's an expression, so we don't need an equal sign. So we can go ahead and kind of write what we're going to do. We're going to pay for 250 keychains times how much they cost times K. We're going to pay for them a whole bunch of times. And we're going to buy 500 pencils, and it's $P per pencil. And now you've got an expression, so you're done. This is the expression, but I also expect to see you're defining your variable. There's no need to solve anything. Of course you can't. And like I said, you don't need to do an equation because they're not asking for one, although you could. You just see equals T, the total, or something like that. Okay, you may go ahead and get to work. Your homework.